just to introduce myself, I'm Paul George, and I've been part of FRC for 21 years. This will be my 21st season. I started in 1994, and when Procter & Gamble sponsored two teams, one at Walnut Hills and one at Aiken High School. And one was engineering, which is what I was on at Aiken High School, and then R&D team at Walnut Hills. Anyways, so I was on a team for a couple years, and then I helped run events for, well, I still help running events. And I'm co-chair of the Queen City Regional here in Cincinnati. I'm also on the Ohio State Steering Committee, which is the partners for FLL, FTC, and the regional chairpersons. So that group is about trying to get all the programs to start working together. Anyway, so been doing it a long time, and I've been 1038 team leader since, I forget. Let's see. Anyways, 4 or 5 years, doesn't matter. All right, so you asked about team structure. So we'll start with that because that's the easy one. The biggest thing is that there's no right or wrong team structure. It depends on how many students you have, what kind of students you have, what mentors you have, what their skill sets are, that sort of thing. So just like companies, right? You know, there's kind of this generic, you know, you have people at the bottom, you have some managers in between, and then you have some leader at the top. Generically, everybody has that same kind of structure. And the same thing with FRC teams. The bigger the team, the more fluent, not fluent, but the more structure you have, the more sub-teams and that sort of thing. Small teams, they don't have the resources, so you typically have just small structures. So it's up to you to decide how you want to structure your team. So for example, we have an animation team, right? If you don't have enough students or none that are interested in animation, it doesn't make any sense to have an animation team. If you don't have somebody that even to mentor them, then don't have an animation team, right? So you guys got to figure out what it is that what's important for you guys, how you want to get structured, and that sort of thing. So here's, this is a presentation from Karthik, and I can't pronounce his last name, that he's been around a long time as well. He's now a Woody Flowers Award winner. He put this presentation together years ago. So here's a sample org chart for his team. You can see you've got, we call it overall authority, right? So in our team in 1038, we have what we call the Leadership Council. And on that Leadership Council, we have a subset of our mentors and students that change every year. And what they do is they set the overall direction for the team. So they make decisions like, how many regionals are we going to go to? Which ones do we want to go to? Who are we going to approach for fundraising? How are we going to do fundraising? Are we going to, only mentors going to do it? Mentors and students going to do it? So any of the things that in terms of the overall direction for your team, that's where the Leadership Council falls. That's how we use the Leadership Council. And we typically meet once a month to discuss issues and kind of keep everybody up to date on what's going on with the team. In Karthik's, they've split it up into marketing, finance, and engineering, which is, when you think about typical companies, right, that's what they have. You don't have marketing and finance reporting to engineering and vice versa. They're usually subsystems or sub-organizations within that company. So this is very much like a corporate entity that makes some kind of product, and they have an engineering staff. And you can see this is, in my experiences in the real world, this is very similar to what, especially design and controls. That's how, think of this as the mechanical team. So mechanical team here, electrical team or controls team there. That's very, very typical of companies, how they set up. What is unusual, of course, is strategy and scouting. Strategy is how you're going to play the game, right? So, in a big company, right, you have a strategic team. They're usually part of the overall authority. They're not down here. But this is a thing that's only for FRC or FTC or whatever, just because of the nature of what we do. And then he has marketing and finance and the different sub-teams there. Now, what 1038 does is we try to have a lead adult mentor and a lead student mentor. So we look at the overall authority on 1038. I'm the adult team team leader. So when I send out emails, a lot of times I put on there 1038 team leader. But we also elect, and we have the students elect these positions. We used to be the other way around. We used to have the mentors, darn computers. We used to have the mentors and the leadership, and actually the leadership council select the students for the leadership positions. We found out the hard way that the students want to have an input into that. And so now we have elections for the student position. So we have a team captain. It's a student, and he's automatically on the leadership council, and the students elect him. We have two elected positions for the leadership council. So they're just, call them ad hoc student positions. And then we have a fourth person, because we started an FTC team this year. We have an FTC captain, and she is automatically on the leadership council as well. So we have 4 students. We have approximately, I'll say 10 mentors on the overall authority, on the leadership council. One of those, actually the 2 of those this year, is what we call the boosters. So that's parents that then help support the team. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on. All right. Any questions about this structure? I mean, it's just an example structure, nothing magic about it.
Do you have a lead student?
Correct. So whatever structure you have, what we would do is, so we have a student leader there, then we'd have we call this the machine team. Instead of calling it engineering, we call it the machine team. We would nominate or select a student to be the machine team leader. It can be the same student as it is here, but the idea is you're trying to spread out and give as many students as possible leadership opportunities, right, to learn and grow. So yes, for each one of these sub-teams, we would have an adult mentor and a student leading that team. And the idea is we try and encourage the students to lead the team, make the stuff happen, right? So leadership is about, looking forward to what needs to be done, getting the resources to get it done, and then making sure it does get done, right? The students have a hard time with that process. So the mentor there is to remind them of that this is what you need to be doing, this is what you need to be thinking about, and making it happen. So the higher you up are in the hierarchy, though, the more broader the things that you're looking at in terms of those leadership qualities. Things you need to be thinking about, right? So this guy, if you're talking about mobility, all you're worried about is the base. So you're just thinking about the base. Versus if you're leading the machine team, you're worried about getting this whole thing integrated and everybody working together and getting that machine built on time. And I'm going to have to fix this.
Change your timeout.
You can edit this out, right?
Yep. That's what I'm here for.
Let's see, where do I need to go? Display? I forget.
One of the things. It's under screensaver, actually. I think yeah, go back.
Is it back?
The lower right, it might be. See the screensaver? That one.
Oh, yeah.
That might be it. It's in a weird place in Windows 7. And then it says, I think that window gives you an option for timeout.
It says screensaver none. Oh, you know what it is? It's this.
Yeah, there it is, power settings. You just tell it, don't blank my screen.
Right. Let's see, power, choose what to do, closing the lid, create a power plan, turn off the display. That one right there. Never,
Yeah. Used to be easier to get to that.
yeah,
Yeah, you're on 1 minute, you make it an hour or never, whatever it was.
5 hours, how's that?
That should do it.
All right.
And actually, I'm gonna.
I'll get a drink too. Okay, so is that pretty clear in terms of how we try to offer up leadership opportunities? And the big thing is that you have to recognize that the students, unless they've been in some other organization in a leadership role, even if they've been on the team, for a couple of years, for some reason it doesn't really sink in too well, right? So even though the mentors are role modeling what they want the students to do, for some reason it just doesn't occur to them. So that's where the mentor has to be, watching what's going on and stepping in. So the idea is to nudge them, not to be putting your thumb on the students. The students want to do it all, and I presume there's some teams, because I know some teams are that way. They're student-led. The mentors just kind of are on the sidelines until they're called in. We tried to do that one year, and did not work for us. I'm not saying it wouldn't work for you, but it didn't work for us. So anyways, it is a growth opportunity for the students, and they like it a lot more. So you need to enable them as much as power, feel like they're empowered, feel like that they're contributing. When the mentors step in, like we talked about, right, that's when you get this big disconnect. So we'll talk about that some more, because we've gone through that. So, all right, so he goes through and discusses each of the different groups here. I don't know if you want to go through that or not. I mean, you've been on the team, you've been experienced with that. To me, it's kind of redundant, but it's up to you. Would you like to go through these or not? I can make this available to you. You can get the whole presentation.
You just make it available.
All right.
You don't need to.
I was hoping you'd say that. So the other document that I think is very helpful is this one, and let's see, yep, that's not too bad. And this one's available on the US FRC website. It's called the FRC Mentoring Guide, and it talks about what it means to be a mentor, how to, the easiest thing to do is look at the contents here. It talks about the mentor-student interactions, what's the best way to approach that. It just gives you some good first principles for doing it. Some of the things that one of the biggest things for me that I became aware of years ago was that, I don't know how true this is, but it's real for me. The students are typically in a mode of, they go to the classroom, the teacher takes control of the classroom, right? You tell me what it is that you want me to learn, okay? You give me homework, I go do the homework, you tell me. So someone, their parents, their teachers, everybody is in a mode of, that student is always in a mode of, tell me what it is that I need to go do, right? Mom, do I need to go to practice this Saturday, or not, in many cases. Some students, take more active role in knowing where they're supposed to be, like for band or for sports or that sort of thing. But in many cases, the parents, they're the ones that got the bastard schedule and all that stuff, and they kind of, I don't say coddle the students, but they can always go to mom and dad and say, okay, what is I'm supposed to be doing today, right? There's always somebody looking over their shoulder, get your homework done, the whole 9 yards. All right. First is trying to replicate what it is to be a active person in a business when you graduate, right? When you're in when you go to a business, even when you're a first-year person, you get a project, right? You're maybe working with somebody, you're working on something, but you got some stuff that you own, that you have to deliver, etc. It's a different mindset. You don't have that guy looking over your shoulder saying, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, make sure you get this done, right? You got to figure all that out. Now you can go ask, and hopefully they've done some training to get you up to speed, but ultimately it all falls on your lap to make sure you get that done. So that's what FRC wants you to do here. You want to try and transition those students for a period, for me, it's transitioning those students from somebody always telling me what I'm supposed to be doing to thinking for themselves to figure out what it is that needs to get done. So that's why it talks about coaching through facilitation, promote independent thought, right? That's what you want the coaches to do. That's what the mentors should be doing, is trying to get those students to start thinking for themselves rather than sitting back all the time and waiting for somebody to tell them what needs to be done. That is very difficult to do, okay? This They're supposed to be self-led, right? This is the same kind of program, and I don't know how to describe it any more than, it takes a lot of nudging. And what will happen, what has happened to me and our team, okay, is that, so we like I said, we put these students in the leadership roles and say, okay, this is what we want you to go do, now go do it, and then, we struggle, they struggle, the whole thing kind of falls off the table, and then the last 3 weeks of the season you go, oh shoot, we don't have a robot, we only got 3 weeks, okay, and then it's all hands on deck to get that robot built, right, designed and built. So you're not following the right processes in terms of, making drawings ahead of time, and then getting the parts made so that everything fits together, right? It's okay, it's a little sketch, I think this will work, go do this, make this part, don't put it on there, oops, that doesn't work quite right, okay, let's modify it, let's do this, do that. And that sets you up for failure in terms of the students, because the mentors then it feels like to the students that the mentors have taken over the team. They've taken over the robot. You don't have time to facilitate the conversation anymore. It's all about let's just get it done, right? And right. So it's an easy trap to fall into. If you want to get that robot done in that 6 weeks, and you don't follow the right schedule the first 3 weeks, that's the mode you'll be in, and otherwise, you'll get to competition, you won't have a robot. So, what's the right? I'm not sure what to say. Where to go from here? I would like to have it such that the students take over the team. They make sure everything gets done, but it's a difficult thing to manage and have happen. And it could be for us, because we've struggled with this for a number of years, that's partly why they don't have the right role models also, as they're coming up into the leadership roles, right? So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess what I'm saying. So if you want to break yourself out of that mold, out of that situation, you have to break the mold, right, and do something different. And every year we try, and so far we keep stubbing our toes, but that's the way it goes. All right, this document is very good. It talks about all those stuff about interactions, like I said, and I'm not going to go through it and read it. You can read it on your own, right? And I don't need to read it from you. It's a lot of texting. The one thing that I would stress is is gracious professionalism. And as you know, that's a big thing with First. And for me, and I was in Scouts, right? And they kind of have the same thing, but not quite the same. But it is the thing that sets First apart from all the other, because this is really more of a sports competition with sports than it is with the Boy Scouts, right? Nobody has that kind of mentality in the sports world. Gracious professionalism, cooperation, any of those kinds of concepts, right? It's win at all costs. So when you're setting up your team and structuring your team and thinking about the mentor-student interactions and mentor-to-mentor interactions as well, because what the students are going to do is they're going to look at how you guys interact with each other, and they're going to model that, okay? So start with gracious professionalism as your base and build off of that. If you don't, this will be meaningless, okay? You'll have the greatest intentions, but it won't ever come to pass. It'll just get pushed aside when push comes to shove. So we just had a discussion, we had a mandatory team meeting last week where we discussed gracious professionalism, we discussed team safety, so safety here at the mall, that sort of thing, personal safety. And I had to explain to the students, because they've seen this unfortunately several times from me, where myself and another mentor or two other mentors, in the stress of the moment, get overheated, let's say, have an overheated discussion. So they raise voices, and I had to tell a student, and students that told me after the fact, they said, well, you guys weren't being gracious professionalism. That's not gracious professionalism. I said, well, okay, look, GP means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. If you read all the stuff that Woody has out there, in fact, I think it's in here, that's one of the things he says. He says, I can't define exactly what GP is for everybody. So it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. You have to find your own space in there. I said, but look, I said, we don't do it all the time. We only do it when we get stressed out. And if you notice, we don't attack that person personally, right? So it's about talking about some object, it's being objective. In other words, attack is not attacking the idea. It's not attacking. It's in a heated discussion saying this is the way you should do it. Not saying you're an idiot and you're wrong. This is the way I think we should do this, and this is why we should do this. And I said, look, it's because we have so much passion about this program. We're passionate about the robot, but we're also passionate about you. And I asked them, so what's important about passion? What's important about passion? Why do you want people with passion? Why?
I guess it's competition to be the best.
All right, so, yeah, but at its root, it's a motivation, right? So if you don't care about something, are you going to do anything about it? No, right? If you don't have any passion about a subject, if you don't care about something, you have zero motivation unless somebody's got a cattle prod behind you forcing you to do it. Okay? And this is a big thing in the office too, right? In businesses. But if you're passionate about something, you will knock down doors, you will do whatever it takes, you'll get stuff done. You won't see barriers, you'll see opportunities, that sort of thing. So passion is the underlying motivation for people to change the world. So passion is a good thing. You don't want to knock passion out of the equation, okay? But when you have people with passion, what happens? Sometimes the passion, boils up and overflows, and you get heated discussions. So it's not so bad that you have the heated discussion. I mean, if you were, having a personal attack, and the Martin, this guy from Miami, right, the football player that, got harassment, left because of harassment and all that. And they're saying, well, we're just trying to motivate him, right? Well, okay, wait a minute. So what's important here? You're going about the wrong way, in my opinion, right? You're not generating the passion for him to be better than what he is. Anyways, so that's where you want to encourage students to have passion about it. You want your mentors to have passion. but you got to realize that creates problems sometimes on the team, and you have to be ready to deal with that. So, anyways,
How do you deal with it?
how do you deal with it?
I mean, if you have two mentors going at it, they're being professional about it, they're not manly talking, but they're like, no, this is the right way. Like, if you're like the head mentor, you pull them outside, enjoy your passion, what you're trying to
I would not pull them outside. I would try to get them to calm down and say stop, right? Okay, let's take a time out, right? Then you need to do is you need to get everybody together that has a stakeholder in the discussion, and then let's see if we can come up with a way to make a decision where we're not yelling at each other, right? So, let's come up with some kind of criteria. Let's grade the criteria. Let's do this on an engineering basis instead of an emotional basis. So once you get into this yelling back and forth, basically at that point, nothing productive is going to happen because they're not listening to each other, and they're just promoting their agenda at that point, right? So yeah, it's not going to be productive. So I think the thing that you have to teach the students is like it's okay to stop that. This is not productive. You can have that kind of conversation. Stop the discussion. The problem is that most people won't do that. They'll just they'll just walk away. Everybody walks away, and those two people are sitting there just going at it. The best thing I think is to stop it and say, okay, look, guys, we're not getting anywhere here. Let's step aside and let's figure out a way to make this decision without based on data, right, rather than emotions.
That's the big part of it, is defining the robot and the strategy up front. Keep going back to that. This is where we decided.
Yeah, well, it depends. What is the decision you're trying to make, right? So if it's well, look, we only have room for these two one of these two mechanisms on the robot, right? So now that goes back to a strategy decision, right? So like last year, for example, we dropped the picking up off the floor because we said, number one, it was really difficult because of the way the frisbees kind of stuck to the floor, and two, we didn't have room on the robot. We were trying to keep the robot as small and as light as possible, and that was going to take up a lot of space. Once you pick it up, then you got to do something with it. You got to manipulate it. All that was going to take up a tremendous amount of space. So that's at a strategy level. You have to go back to your strategy decision and say, okay, look, we got these two mechanisms. Which one has the most value to the team, and which one is one more difficult or easier to build and implement, right? And what skills do we have? Do they match up with that? On the other hand, if it's within the mechanism, you've already decided, hey, I'm going to pick up on the floor. I don't care. That's the strategy we want. And someone says, well, here's a good example. The year that we had 2009 lunacy, and we're picking up the moon rocks, which were those funky strap balls, okay? Do you want to use a conveyor system to pick it up, or do you want to use a helix? And so we had two concepts on the team. Conveyor sucked it up, ran it up a conveyor, and then dropped it into a big bin, okay? Or we had a helix. Somebody wanted to use a helix with brushes, and you just storage of the rocks was in the helix itself, right? So you didn't have two mechanisms, you only had one. So there was two camps, and they were both very adamant about this is the right decision, right? And so that's a very different discussion. It doesn't help you to go back to strategy because you've already made the strategy that I need to pick up the balls and store them on the robot. It's which one do you think is going to be the best one for that strategy? So that's a different discussion. Now you have to grade those two options against each other to figure out which one you want to implement. And okay, so yeah.
Personality is being very strong, especially when you're going
Well,
control and have less input from the students.
yeah. So that is an area where you have to remind the mentors of why we're there, okay? So I'm a poster child for the program. I've told this story many times. I didn't make it up. This is a true story. In 1994, when we were starting to form the team that I was on at P&G, they had brought all of the engineering folks in Cincinnati into a big auditorium. They had a couple of robots from the Winning Alliance from the previous year came in, and they made this big presentation. Everybody's going, ooh, this is a lot of fun, and if you want to be on the team, fill out this application, right? Why do you want to be on the team? You know, what are your skills? Da-da-da-da-da. Well, I'm sitting there going, man, I'd love to build this radio control robot. That'd be so much fun. It'd be so cool. Oh, wait, I got to work with high school kids. I'm 30-some years old. I don't even have nieces and nephews that old yet, you know. So, I mean, that was literally was the battle going back and forth in my mind. Do I really want to do this or not? Because what am I getting myself into, right? I'm an engineer, you know. Uncertainty is not a fun thing, fun place to be. Obviously, you know the answer because I did fill it out and I got on the team and I've been doing this ever since. And when we went to the competition, Dean was very clear about why he started the competition. Because he wanted to get people like myself to work with high school kids and be mentors for them, be role models for those kids. But he knew he needed a hook to get them to do it, right? He needed some reason, some incentive, some passion, right? This passion thing, some reason to get them in the door. And the robot is that vehicle, right? So, you know, if you're all about winning and all about, you know, I just want to win the competition, build a robot as a mentor, if that's really why you're there, then all this discussion we've had is pointless because it doesn't matter to you. All that matters to you is building that robot. You don't care whether the students have a good time, you don't care whether the students grow, you just want to build that robot and you want to go win the competition. But that's not what FRC is about. FRC is about getting you to work with young people to get them to grow, get them to feel like science and technology is a fun and exciting career. But ultimately, you know, where I have found the most reward in the program is in watching students that didn't follow that path, but grew much more than the students that did. Okay? So when I talk about passion about the program, that's the thing that fuels me. When I think back on all the students that I've seen that have grown up in under my tutelage over the years, not entirely myself, that's the thing that fuels me, and that's what FRC really ultimately is about, is making better people, better students when they leave high school. So it goes back, and we've had this conversation several times in 1038, right? For example, I don't know how you guys get your students for your team, whether you guys have an application process. We accept all students regardless. And there was talk at one time about, you know, having an application process, you know, only take students that are, you know, interested, or at least peripherally interested. It's like, wait a minute. That's not what the program's about. If they're already interested in science and technology, they're already hooked. They're just, you know, they're bonus. That's not the kids you're targeting for. You want the ones that you're going to convince to change their right careers, right? So we talked about a student that didn't seem ever to be engaged, was always more in terms of wanting to be socializing and that sort of thing, flittered about, etc. And, you know, should we not invite that student back? And I took them through this process. Why are we here? You know, what's important? And they went, oh yeah, okay, so we don't have to worry about that. We'll invite her back. She came back for her senior year. She was better that year, but still didn't seem really engaged, right, with the program. Always went to competitions, that sort of thing. She makes this speech at our banquet that's inspiring about how her involvement changed the team, changed her life. It's like how, you know. So you just never know. And she was one of these students that dressed up in a kind of goth. She wasn't 100% goth, but she was kind of going that direction. By the time she graduated, she kind of moved away from that. She was still, you know, a little bit here and there. So clearly, she was a completely different person after she went through the program. But you'd never know that when you saw her at the workshops and how she interacted with the students and stuff. I never recognized it. So until she made that speech. Okay, so now I did my cry for today. What else can I tell you?
What about other ways to motivate students? We have a lot of students that just kind of hang around and talk on things. Are there any other ways that you just talk to them about the program while they're there? Do you have other ways?
Well, what we've found over the years, I was convinced at one point in time that the way students got inspired was if they did stuff that was fun during the build season. Finally, one of the mentors convinced me that no, it's all about the competition. When they go to the competition, that's when they get inspired. And we went round and round about that for a long period of time. The answer is you don't know what's going to inspire one student versus another. So if they're sitting around, it's not necessarily about motivating them as much as it is engaging them. Okay? So yes, we have that. Again, it goes back to what I commented about earlier. Most students are in a mode of tell me what it is you want me to do. Okay? So part of the mentors and part of the returning students, part of their, what they need to do is they need to be watching what's going on with the students, and if students are sitting around, you need to help find them something to do. Get them involved in the process, right? So we don't know what's going to motivate you versus what's going to motivate, another student. All we can do is get you involved in the process. Some students, they love brainstorming, right? And then it's like after brainstorming's over, there's like, well, I really care less about what happened, all right? So we try to keep them busy. We try to watch to make sure that all the students, as much as we can, have something to do every time that they show up. Now, it's not possible to do that 100%. But that's how we try to address that situation, and it's the mentors and the team leaders, the student team leaders, to kind of keep an eye on that and try to help get the students involved. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
There's also an FRC Handbook I have a copy of. It's up, you can get it. Just if you go to the Team Resources page, both this one and the FRC Handbook's up there, and it's got several sample team organizations up there. It also talks about, fundraising, how do you set up for fundraising, and a bunch of other stuff. So, and again, I got the document, we could go through it, but to me, it's best read on your own. And I love, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer any questions and stuff like that. But for me to sit here and just read it to you, it's not it's not fun for me and not fun for you either.
On the, I don't know if you went through it or not, but the very first day of workshops we had, one of the speakers talked all about first new model for fundraising, and that's on the YouTube Team 1030 webpage. Talks up there. It's pretty good, and it kind of goes through some of their official material.
So this is US First Robotics, the mentoring. So this is the mentoring page. Here's the mentoring guide. So there's links to other stuff as well. There's also the Senior Mentor Program. So Ted Hood, you've probably seen some emails from Ted, maybe. I don't know if you're the team contact. Okay. Anyways, Ted Hood is a senior mentor, so he's a employee of First. It's a part-time job, and he's there to facilitate either fundraising or getting you materials or getting you in contact with the right people at headquarters, that sort of thing. He helps out on the Queen City Planning Committee and Buckeye. But they also have weekly teleconferences, conference calls, and anybody can call in and listen. And they have a variety of different subjects, some of which we've already talked about. So they do have a list of the recordings, so you don't have to listen to it on Wednesday. You could listen to it afterwards. But anyways, there's a link to the recordings, and I think somewhere there's a link to when those meetings occur and what the topics are. So it's another good resource. If I go back, I believe. Let's see what happens here. So there's a whole nother page up here you can see at the top. Team organization and management. Come on. There's the conference calls again. I thought I had the handbooks and manuals down here. So there is a wealth of information on the web. Here's the handbook I was referring to. Tells you about the whole season, how to structure your whole season from, starting in the fall. What do you need to do in the fall to make sure you're ready for the build season? A lot of different information, right? Some of it better than others, but it all has a lot of good information in it. But this is the FRC Handbook that I was referring to earlier. It has different structures. Yeah, so
I'd like to have have a meeting with all the mentors first. And maybe have somebody come together and discuss what we why are you here?
great. So
Why they're going to be here.
yeah, and we did that. Trying to remember when. I can't remember. We've had a couple of mentor-only meetings, and we had a discussion about, like you said, why are we here? What are the student expectations, right? So one of the things that is good to do is get the students to say, what do you expect out of the mentors? Share that with the mentors so they know what the students are looking for. But we had this discussion about, look, this is the build season. This is what we'd like to do differently than what we've done in the past, right? This is what we did before. We don't feel good about that. Doesn't matter why, just we don't feel good about it. We want to do something that's better. Or don't even say that. Just say, we want to improve. We know we can get better. We're not perfect. We know we can get better. This is how we would like to get better. And here's our expectations, like expectations of the mentors. Trying to get the students to do as much of the work as possible, right? How to interact with the students, right? No yellings, no screaming, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's we've done that, and that's always been helpful. But again, in the middle of the stress of the build season, it's hard to remember all that.
So what do you, really for the next public season, when do you kick back? Beginning of school year? Like in August?
All right, so I don't actually have that with me. We actually are a year-round team, and but essentially the season is broken up into a break point is about July 1st or August, somewhere around there. From year to year, it's a little different. Essentially, what we do is in September we start having team meetings again. We're inviting the returning students to come back, and we have the students do the recruiting for the new students. Okay, so that's one of the things that they do. Start talking about what kind of fundraising do they want to do for the coming year. What are the things that we want to make changes to the mall space? Is there some things we want to do now before we get started? That sort of thing. This year we also talked about, we started an FTC team, so how are we going to run that team? How are we going to interact with the students? How are we going to structure that? So what's a little bit different for that in terms of FTC versus FRC what we normally do in the fall in October, November is training for the new students, okay? But we've always lacked motivation, the passion. So we said, hey, let's try doing an FTC team and using that as the project to help with the training. Something, because what the students would always tell us is that, yeah, the training's good, but, it's kind of lame, right? We try to make up a game and they go, okay, fine, but it wasn't enough motivation for the students. So this year, by having the FTC and building an FTC robot, you got motivation, buddy, because you got to get that robot built, right? And somebody else picks out the game. So that's what we're doing that a little bit different this year. In October, from early October now, we've been working on our FTC robot. And the struggle is that we need to get that done before FRC competition starts, because once that starts, we're going to be head over heels into that. And our competition isn't until the end of January, so there's like a month overlap. We're working on both. So what we're doing is that we automatically, all the students automatically are on both teams. But the structure is a little bit different. What we said, and this is what we discussed with the returning students in September and set up with them, is that, look, we want you guys to be the mentors, not the mentors to be the mentors. We want the returning students who know how to do all this stuff to be the mentors for the new students coming in. Okay, so what we did is we kind of put the shoe on the other foot, right? They're putting them in a position where we were always, okay, and said, okay, you guys are in charge, let's go, figure out what do you want to do with all this stuff, how do you want to do this, how are you going to split the teams, how are we going to do, etc. So they're struggling with it. It's okay, that's part of the learning process, right? Nothing goes, not expected to go perfect, and we're behind schedule. But I think it's great. I think it's giving them some purpose for the training. It's giving them a different viewpoint on, as far as the students are concerned, on, hey, this is not as easy as it looks to be the mentor, okay? And for example, we just the other day, someone said, one of the new students said, hey, look, all the returning students are doing all the work. And we said, yeah, well, you're supposed to be teaching the new students and then letting them do it, right? Yeah, okay, so, when they got the chance to be in charge, guess what? They wanted to do everything. And that's, think about it, it's just human nature, right? So, so that's what we're in the process of doing now. We're doing our fall training, and included in that is, all of our equipment, all our safety training. Like I said, we had personal safety training last Saturday. It was a mandatory meeting. We'll have a makeup meeting for that. We expect the students then in December to volunteer at our FLL. We sponsor the Thunderhawks tournament, FLL tournament. We expect them to volunteer for that. We also have a mock build session on one day that takes you through the whole build season in one day. That'll be in early December. And actually we invite everybody's invited to it, yeah. All the local teams are invited. And the kids have a lot of fun with that. So we split them up to teams, we give them a kit of parts, there's first choice. It's a lot like going through the whole season. And then, we kick off the season and we go like crazy for 6 weeks. And last year we did something different than we've never done before, is we built a practice bot. So in reality it was a prototype bot, all right, that we used as our design, how we did our design, and then we improved on the design and built a competition bot that we put in the bag. And then what that allowed us to do, if you can afford it, is then you don't have to worry about getting the competition bot done in time to get the driver's practice, right? So when you talk to all the really good teams, it's not as much about the robot as it is about getting your drivers trained, right? So by building two bots, you put one in the bag, and it's the competition bot, and the other one's basically an identical bot, essentially an identical bot. So it drives exactly the same, it operates the same. The construction was slightly different, that's the only difference. You got...
That you finished on the practice and on
Yeah,
All different parts on it.
right, but, you know, we had all the parts on both, so it didn't matter. But now it gives you some time actually to, you know, beat up the practice bot, but also they get a lot of driving experience, right? And you know, it was 3 weeks before we were like a week 2 or week 3 first competition went to. So they had 2 or 3 weeks of driving practice they could do with the practice bot. We didn't have to worry about pushing that back into the build season, right? So if you can afford it and if you got, you know, the resources, I mean, it forces you to build twice as many parts, right? You know, a lot more motors, controllers, you know, you got to have another C-RIO. Some teams don't have a spare C-RIO. You know, doing all the wiring and all that stuff, you know, there's a lot of work that has to be done to get 2 bots, so. It is good practice, and you know, and if you treat the first one as a prototype, right, so it's not, doesn't have to be built to the same level of either, you know, robustness, let's put it that way, right? It could be a little bit weaker and that sort of thing. You know, if you use it in that prototype mode, then it doesn't feel as big of a hardship, right, to get 2 bots built. And that was one of the things. Now, so here, this is a good example of things you have to watch out for. So, as I said, we went through, just like you guys, you know, have this debate about how much the mentors can do, how much the students can do, right? And so we had a revolt from the students a couple years ago, and you know, they're throwing down the gauntlet. You guys are, you know, this is terrible. You guys just take over the team. You're not. It's no fun for us. You know, whatever. Everything was thrown out on the table. So we made a commitment, you know, after that said, you know, look, we're gonna change. So I don't know, where was I going with this conversation? I lost my train of thought. You're not helping, Dave.
So you put in more democratic processes.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, so here's the trap. We put in democratic processes. So one of the things we did at the beginning of the year was said, how many robots do we want to build? Because some of the mentors wanted to build a second bot. And the students said, heck no, we don't want to build another robot. You can't, we barely get one built in a year, right? And we've, you know, done that for how many years now? I says, you're crazy, you don't want to do that, right? And I guess I was persuasive enough, I was leading the meeting to say, no, you know, here's all the benefits. I hear what you're saying, right? So as one technique, if you want to make sure people believe that you've heard what they've said, write it down. So that's what we did. We made sure that we had all the student, you know, input written down, right? And and then I said, okay, here's the advantages of doing all this. And we went through, you know, an objective decision-making process, you know, a matrix that said, look, here's the disadvantages, here's the advantages, and yeah, I hear what you're saying that you don't think we can do it, but I want to get better, and I want to learn how to do something different. I want to grow, and if we don't try, you'll never know if you can do it or not. And so I convinced everybody that, and we did build, and I think that the students were actually very surprised that we managed to do it, but also very happy that we did. So you have to be careful about that interaction with the students, because, you know, you can get trapped into, you know, you ask them what they want, you give them what they want, but you could also give them more than what they want, right? If you just take their input straight up, you'll just give them what they want. But there's times where you can think outside that box and give them more than what they want. Even if they say, I don't want that, they just sometimes don't realize they want that. That's a trap not only for here, but that's a trap that businesses fall into all the time. Oh, I listen to my customers. This is only what my customers want. And then you get this guy out here in left field that never has been in that business saying, yeah, but here's a better way, okay? And if I can make this work, you're going to be history, right? And that's what happened. That's happened over and over and over again in business. So it's a big trap. It's good to listen, but, you know, you still got to look at the big picture.
Get that growth there.
You got to get that growth. So, okay. Whew. What else would you like me to talk about? Does that cover the gamut? I mean, we
Covered pretty well. I think pull quite a few good information.
And like I said, we're always around. Jimmy's around. We can come.
Innovation, is there much of fundraising, I mean, that's year-round thing for you then, or is it you really have a push at a certain time of the year where you sort of contacting businesses?
The big push is in the fall, where so we have a list of sponsors that some we know are only going to be, 1 or 2 year kind of sponsors. So like the Duke Foundation, Duke Energy, they typically would like to give you seed money, get you going, and so they only like to give it one time. So but they sponsor us for a couple years, and we knew that going in. Northrop Grumman, for example, though, has been one we've gotten sponsorship from year after year. So in the fall, that's typically when we contact them again. So in the spring, we do a presentation to them. Right now, we give them a plaque with a team picture on it, and that's where for thank you. But then typically we reapply for grants in the fall. We have the students come up with their plans for how they want to do fundraising. We tried the EWAT program, but it's tough for the kids. It's tough for the kids to sell anything. I don't know why it is with our kids, but it is tough. McDonald's coupons, EWAT, candy bars, and we'll do things in the fall like, we haven't done this year. And part of that is the booster. So one of the things I didn't talk about is the booster organization. So that's led by a parent or parents. And as soon as if your student is on the team, you're on the boosters whether you want to be or not, okay? So they're a support organization for the team. So during the build season, they organize dinners for the team or lunches for the team, so we don't have to worry about that. But they also help with fundraising events. They help us with demonstration events. So when JCPenney was a sponsor, right before they dropped out, we went to Bridgewater Falls and we set up out there for a day on a Saturday. We had tables. They supplied whatchamacallit, food and stuff, brownies and that kind of stuff. It was, we had candy bars to sell. So we were doing a demo. We drove the robot around the inside. So they were there. They were helping with that. So we do that stuff in the fall because once you get to the build season, it's all hands on deck on the build season. And then in the summertime, we also do additional demos. Like this year, we went to Moto Man in Dayton. That was actually a multiple team effort. 3 of us went up there, made a big presentation. They showed us their facility.
So do you have the students do the presentation?
As much as I can, I have the students do the presentation. So typically what I'll do is I will kick it off just to get it going and then turn it over to the students. And usually what I'm asking, we take one of the robots, we talk about, talk about the season, what the build season's like, 6 weeks. Can you believe that? So a lot of times what you do is you go up to somebody that's in engineering, right, and say, okay, how long do you think it took us to design and build that robot? And they'll go, 6 months. No, 6 weeks. What? So, yeah, they are impressive once you explain to them what we do in the short amount of time that we do it.